The Stanford MBA application deadlines are available now. This is for the 2026 intake. So we've put together this guide to assist you in the process of putting up a strong application for the Stanford MBA program this year. So let's start with the deadlines first of all. The first round for the Stanford MBA application this year ends on 9th of September. And the second round deadline is 7th of January 2026. And the third round deadline is 7th of April 2026. So make sure that if this is a target school for you, then you have the deadlines marked in your calendars and you're working backwards from day one. So, what are the eligibility requirements, especially for the Indian applicants? A bachelor's degree is required to apply to the Stanford MBA program. The 3-year Indian degree is acceptable to apply to the Stanford MBA program. And it is also preferable that you should have a 2 years master's degree, although it is not mandatory. So after a 3 years bachelor's, if you have a 2 years master's degree, that is preferred for the admissions process to the Stanford MBA program. In terms of the academic focus, they do prefer a strong academic. So the eligibility or the academic requirements for the Stanford MBA applications is definitely strong credentials in terms of your academic performance. And you will need to submit your degree transcripts, your institution names, grading scales, course language of instruction, etc., as a part of the application process. The bachelor's degree is a mandatory requirement to apply to the Stanford MBA program. The 3-year Indian degree is definitely acceptable to apply to the Stanford MBA program. After your 3-year undergraduate degree, in case you have a 2 years master's degree, that is a preferred. A 2-year master's degree after the 3 years bachelor's degree is definitely preferred by the Stanford MBA admissions process. However, it is not mandatory that you should have the master's as well, though it is preferable. So your 3 years at Indian degrees, for example, if it is a BCom, BBA, or a BSc, it was you can apply to the Stanford MBA program. The program does focus on your academics and your scores. In terms of the documents, you will need to submit your degree transcripts, your institution names, your grading scale, course languages, the course language of instruction as a part of the submission to the online application process. Now, coming to the next part of your submissions, which is going to be your GMAT or GRE test score. So, the GMAT Focus Edition is also accepted, and any one can be submitted. So, either the GMAT or the GRE can be submitted. The reporting codes for the GMAT or the GRE are given on this particular page. Please follow the instructions and submit your scores well in time if this is a target school for you. Now, coming to what are the acceptable GMAT or the GRE test scores. While there is no minimum test score, the past year averages have been as follows. The average GMAT score has been around 738. The average GRE verbal score has been 163, and the average GRE quant score has been 164. While these are average scores, there is always a range of scores which is admitted at all schools. So for the GMAT score range for the Stanford MBA admissions, it is 560 to 790, and the GRE verbal range has been from 152 to 170. The GRE quant range has been from 153 to 170. So based on your profile and your test scores, the admissions committee will take a holistic approach towards evaluating applicants. What about the English language proficiency test? So the tests that you can submit are the TOEFL, the IELTS, or the PTE test scores. The minimum test scores are 100 on the TOEFL IBT. The IELTS has to be a 7, and the PT has to be as a 68 on the minimum. The average test scores for the class of 2026 on the TOEFL has been around 113. So the English proficiency tests are required if any of your undergraduate courses were not taught in English, unless you've completed a full-time graduate program which was totally entirely in English. So you need to submit the English language proficiency test scores as well. What are the essay requirements as a part of your Stanford MBA admissions process? So the first essay that you need to write is what matters most to you and why. The word limit for this is around 650 words. The second essay is why Stanford for you? How will Stanford add value to what plans you have for the future? You can write this in about 350 words. There is also an optional section which you can address, and there is an additional essay that you will have to write if you are applying to both the MBA and the MSX programs. How will you enhance the MSX community? That is something that you have to address if you are through the same application form applying for both the MBA and the MSX programs. Coming to the letter of recommendations that you need to submit for the Stanford MBA application process. The recommendations have to be submitted online. Two professional recommendation letters are required as a part of your application process to the Stanford MBA program, and your recommenders must submit the online recommendations directly. So, what will they be asked about? They will be asked about your candidature in comparison to your peers, the constructive feedback and how you handle it, and any optional comments. So, this is broadly a range of questions that every recommendation letter will actually require your recommenders to answer. So it is better to start ahead of time, because they will need time to think and give insightful responses to your recommendation letters. The recommenders will also be required to complete an assessment of your leadership traits. So, this is how your recommendation letter process will go if you're applying to the Stanford MBA program. Now, coming to the optional short answer question, you have the option of submitting around 3 examples, each of 200 words or 1200 characters at max. Answering the question, describe a time in the last 5 years when you created a positive impact. So, this is your opportunity to come up with those very specific, impactful things that you have done as a part of your resume, as a part of your work experience, your leadership experience outside of work, or any other academic achievements that you have. So you can use this particular opportunity to talk about 3 examples, each in around 200 words, as to how you created a positive impact in the last 5 years. How competitive is the Stanford MBA admissions process? So if you look at the past year statistics, there were around 7,295 applicants to the Stanford MBA program for the class of 2026, out of which 424 applicants were enrolled. That means your acceptance rate at the Stanford MBA is around 5.8%. So this is definitely very, very competitive process to get into. The average GPA in the class profile has been around 3.75, and the average work experience admitted to the class at Stanford has been around 5.1 years. So if you're targeting this particular program, then make sure that you're ready for this competitive process and you start well in time. Choose your application rounds and start well in time to put up a strong application. Coming to the class diversity in terms of the class profile, the class that you will be sitting within the Stanford MBA program will definitely be hugely diverse. You will have professionals from different industry backgrounds and coming from different professional functions as well. So this is going to be like the best engagement in terms of the peer learning experience that you might have at any MBA program across the world. The standard application fee is around 275 US dollars. So as a part of your application process, make sure that you are also budgeting for all of these costs. And you can also go ahead with some fee waivers which are available if you are eligible for that. So check out the specific requirements in terms of the fee waivers and see if you want to apply for those. How is the interview process for the Stanford MBA admissions? It is conducted by alumni, and the interview is going to be a behavioral style in terms of the format of the interview. And the test score is a mandatory requirement. No interview without a valid test score will be conducted. So make sure that you have completed your GMAT or your GRE when you are submitting your application form. So what should you do now in case you are planning to apply to the Stanford MBA program? Start your essays early. Choose your recommenders widely. You can submit 2 recommendation letters. Talk to your recommenders about your candidature and your career plan so that they submit a really insightful recommendation to support your application. Use your own voice. Be authentic in your essays. It is not required that your essay should be polished to perfection. It is important that your essays should show your personality and talk about your skills. And also use the other essays and the short answer questions that you have. Use the short answer questions very wisely to show the range of experience that you are coming with. So make sure that you have a very strong application strategy before you get down to writing the essays finally. When do you start with your essay writing process? Before the essay writing process, sit down to reflect. Look at your values, your experiences, your aspirations. Think about the essay topics very deeply. Talk about what will you talk about in what part of your application. And then in case you need any revisions, or in case you will need multiple revisions for these essays that you're writing, so better start well in time. The first step is self-reflection and research the program. Research what Stanford stands for, and research what experience you are going to get into, what are your career goals, how do you fit into the program as an international applicant, and what do you bring to the table in terms of your contribution to the cohort. Think about all of these things before you start drafting your essays, And in case you need any feedback or reviews of your essays, feel free to get in touch with us. So we can help you with if you're thinking whether you will fit the MBA profile that the Stanford program looks for, or if you want a candid discussion of how your candidacy fits into different programs or what other programs you can apply to, feel free to get in touch with us for a profile evaluation, for your essay reviews, or for your interview preparation. So all the best, and we'll be coming up with more insights in terms of the application requirements, especially for the international applicants in the next few weeks. So make sure that you have subscribed to our channels as well as share this video with anybody who might find it useful.